And to get a little more perspective on Syria, Art Heitzer and Sandra Edhlund join us. Thank you very much for being here this evening.
Yes, they are Milwaukee attorneys.
Thank you for inviting us.
Milwaukee attorneys, you have traveled to Syria. You went a couple of years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about the areas that you were in and what the people are like?
Sure. Well, we went on a trip 3 years ago to this month, led by former Senator Jim Aberes from South Dakota, who's Arab American, and his wife is Syrian. So the big cities we went to were Damascus, Aleppo, where the reports are there's 100,000 Christians who've had to flee there to get safe haven in the Damascus area. Latakia, which is the eastern end of the Mediterranean. Hama, where there's famous Roman water wheel, but also where there was a major insurrection by the Muslim Brotherhood that was violently put down in 1982. And we saw a lot of ruins as well, which are indescribable.
Yeah. Now, we've got recently reports of a village that you visited that has recently been attacked by Al-Qaeda. Tell us about what that village was like, because you were there for that too, as I understand it.
Well, it was very distressing. I mean, much of this has been very distressing to hear, because when we were there, things were peaceful, things were orderly, and there are amazing things that are the history of Christianity in that area. And one of these was the village of Malula, which is up in the hills, and it's a place where St. Paul hid out. You know, we don't think about St. Paul having to kind of get away from the Roman soldiers after he changed.
Yes.
So there are many places where he escaped to in Syria. It has one of the oldest churches and monasteries. It is a village that still speaks Aramaic, which is the language that Jesus spoke. It is just a wealth of information and actual things that are part of the Christian heritage.
It must be devastating just to hear about the reports of the destruction that's going on there and the loss of life.
Definitely is.
Now, we've been watching the news reports recently, and obviously this has to touch you in a totally different way. What are you thinking about possible strikes by U.S. on Syria? What are your thoughts, having been there firsthand?
Well, I think it would be a tragedy and a mistake. We have, 100,000 people killed already. 7 million people either within Syria, or 2 million of them are outside of Syria displaced. And that's really where we think, if U.S. has humanitarian concerns, we should be addressing. There is not a world consensus that we should be taking action. The head of the Jesuits said, who appointed these countries to be the policemen of the world? And I really don't think our country can afford anymore, nor do we have the moral or legal basis to be the policemen of the world. So we think there are humanitarian things to do. There's an international criminal court to bring people to justice when there's evidence, but at this point, bringing a military attack by 1 or 2 nations, when even the evidence from the United Nations, they're not even waiting for it, is a big mistake.
And we will no doubt learn more. The President's going to address the nation next week, and we are, as you point out, still waiting for more evidence from the UN, so I guess we'll see how this whole thing shakes out. We'll know more in the weeks ahead, for
We
sure.
appreciate you being with us, though, and offering your insight.
Thank you very much for inviting
Sandra
us.
Edhlund, we appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on Wisconsin Tonight.
Now our